Our third and final speaker for today is Judith Josiah Martin, who is a faculty member in the School of Social Work. Thank you so much, Judith.
Hello and good evening to everybody. I presumptuously put up my hand to do this and have since had much anxiety about doing this presentation. And my initial motivation was because about 8 months ago, when there was a whole lot of racial stuff going on around the country, and I had posted a message on Facebook that was really targeted towards my family and friend circle. Somebody, a close friend, actually a Facebook friend and a close friend of mine here in Maine sent me a message that said, Judy, you don't need to be worried about racial stuff. You live in Maine, you're safe. None of this stuff applies to you, so you can just dial down. And I was like, really? What have I done to my friends that makes them think that because I live in the woods in Maine, I'm immune to all of the other things that are going on? And so that started me on a journey, and part of what I'm going to talk about is just a narrative. It's just my story. It is just something that I just want to bring forward for you to think about. So human beings are known as biological, emotional, social creatures and recognized as cultural beings. From cradle to adulthood, they craft a self that is molded and held together by embedded messages, relationships, and a sense of belonging to family and community. And from these crucibles, we go out and into new and different places and spaces. Through work, social and intimate engagements, we seek to find opportunities, experiences, acceptance, and safety where we can grow, thrive, and excel. When an individual from these family sculpted crucibles find a place, a job or a career where they interact on a daily basis within systems that have historically embedded constructs that marginalize, exploit, discriminate, and suppress based on color, this individual will instinctively construct a response, and some may call it a defensive posture, that allows them to move forward and engage in such a way as to not further diminish themselves. In many ways, just our humanness gets us seen, heard, and respected. But because all places and spaces are not equal, sometimes just being human is not enough. For a person of color, successful by most social standards, economically stable, well-educated, etc., maybe we can call this person a Black female who finds themselves working in an environment where they are by skin color, race, and ethnicity in the minority. There's often a level of assimilation that presents as conformity, peacekeeping, we're all the same, non-direct eye contact, and or passivity that over time may lead to a loss of personhood and maybe even identity. According to Ralph Ellison, and I like reading his book, he makes this quote: "To be invisible means to be construed by others as a collection of general stereotypes rather than an actual individual person. The consequences of the consequences of Ellison's idea of invisibility are not merely the failure of others to understand an invisible person, but this also extends to the invisible person actually living out others' view of his or her identity." Reflecting on this story of Ellison allowed me to come to a realization that I'm nobody but myself. However, I had to discover over a long period of time and through trial and rejection that I had begun to behave as an invisible woman. As an Afro-Caribbean American person who grew up in a predominantly Black Caribbean world, my ascribed communication patterns have always been quick, staccato-like, a little bit lyrical, animated, passionate in nature, a little bit loud, and although very normal in my family and my first day of relationships, in this particular environment, it has earned, and in those relationships and in my family circle, I'm considered and called by many the big cheese, the go-to girl, the adventurer, the person who brings and rallies everybody. But I've discovered in this environment that I now live in, that those positive cultural attributes have earned me the rep of being forceful and authoritative. There are so many instances when you're called to speak and or present, and where you want to have voice. You find yourself going through a series of mental gymnastics in which you disavow these natural communication patterns because you don't want the label of being hypersensitive, opposition culturally defiant, the angry Black woman, or the over-the-top person. You fear the rejection because of your passion, and so you render it invisible. You begin to desire to blend and blend and blend, and in so doing, you reduce yourself. In other instances, after years of being a visible minority of color here at UMaine, one begins to pay attention when you see another person of color, be it a student, faculty, or staff, but you never really acknowledge them because you don't want to appear to need the color affirmation. So you silently walk by without even an eye contact, or as one friend told me the other day, you do the quick nod. That's almost too fast to be recognized. You make them invisible. You see, you two want to pretend that color does not matter because that's the message that the majority is promoting. I've come by to share this story because color does matter even today. The other day several months ago, actually last fall, I was in the cafeteria here on campus at UMaine at the checkout line in my dandiest professorial garb, looking, I thought, very professional and regal, as I'm wont to be, checking out and got a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and a gentleman says to me, "So how are you enjoying your time in our country?" I had not spoken. I had not opened my mouth. I had not made eye contact. I had done nothing but stand in the line like everybody else. I am the mom who, when my eldest daughter and I she was 3 months old, we were going to Target, and she was in her little pumpkin seat in the car, was tracked by a police officer right up into the parking lot at Target, stopped, got out, and asked, "Is that your child?" And after much altercation, was eventually arrested, taken to the police office. My husband had to be called, brought identification to prove that my child was my child. Color matters, you see. Nobody asked me for credentials. Nobody asked me where I was from. It was just about skin perception. She was fairer complexion than her mama was. These messages go on, and in myself, over the years, I have figured that I've gotten to the place of socioeconomic status, accomplishments, educational attainment, where I should be above all of these things. But let me give you one more experience. In the summer, coming back from New York, I was in the airport, also in one of those little snack places, putting together a salad, when a lady walked up to me and started muttering. I did not even look because I don't typically talk to strangers. And she followed me around and I still did not look. And eventually we got up to the cashier, put my little salad down, and she then says to the cashier, "Check her twice because people like that don't usually be able to afford such big salads." I still, in my personhood, not wanting to, just wanting to get home safely like every other traveler, did not do anything, continued down the concourse in LaGuardia Airport towards my gate when I felt myself shoved in the back. And if there's one thing you know about Caribbean people, don't touch us if we don't know you. And that was the end of that. She got a slap, and the rest is history. But not so much. After all of that got worked out, I got off the plane in Bangor several hours later with a police escort. And that's when I had my meltdown, because I had gotten to that place of thinking that I too had arrived at that stature and into that community where color did not matter. I wanted to share these thoughts because it's important to understand that all personhoods, regardless of accomplishments, educational attainment, gender, or creed, we're all affected by systemic practices, symbols, assumptions, and policies that have been colorized and lend to this modern racism. We need to continue to open discourses for non-whites to talk, share, and process how their experiences of themselves is embedded in their interactions with others and how shared meanings can be recreated and altered. Further, that as we allow each other to move beyond just mere reflective self-awareness to a deeper level of understanding how we transmit messages through our family systems, through children, and then into the broader community, if we can understand how these messages are transmitted, we can begin to create healthier interactions for all of us. And as we create safer, racially conscious spaces and places, it is my hope that our policies and strategies will be transformed and that allyship will be more than just slogans and marches, but will be actual changes in the society and how we view another human person as a human and not just a product of skin color. Don't fool yourself. I'm not unique. I have talked to lots of people over the last year, and these experiences, although we comfortably would like to assume are being reduced, have actually increased tenfold, not only in our country, but in many of the first world countries around the world. What can you do to make a difference? That's my question to you. I thank you.